Happy Friday. Hello, everyone. How are you guys?
Great.
Happy 2021, right?
Happy 2021, and welcome to the first M&C Move the Stairs Friday conversation of 2021. And this is where we share brand protection strategies for tackling some of your biggest public relations challenges. And just a quick aside, by the way, if you're joining us on LinkedIn today, welcome. We are going live for the first time on LinkedIn, and we're really, really excited about that. And we're excited to chat with all of you. And if you're joining us live today, we want you to chime in on the conversation. If you're listening later on the podcast, like Arthur will be, I think it sounds like.
Oh, this is Melvin.
That's
this is
Melvin.
the other one.
That's the other one. Hey, we're all working at home. We've got all sorts of stuff. Chime in with comments on the post, and we'd love to get those comments and questions, and we'll answer them later.
So welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking to the CBD industry about how you can use your new year to jumpstart your business brand protection PR fitness plan. And by the end of this episode, you'll be able to put together smart objectives that are going to really help you reach your goals.
And in today's episode, so exciting, kicking off 2021, we're going to be recapping the basics of a PR plan. Now, we did go into this in depth in mid-December. You can go back and listen to that podcast, I believe, published on the 23rd. And that's our latest podcast. You can check out that and listen. But we're also going to talk about how you can use strategies to grow your CBD business. And in 2021, how you can do that without getting in trouble with the FTC or the FDA. Very important there. And then finally, we're going to talk about some creative tactics that you can take to meet your company's growth goals.
So if you're joining us live, please jump into the conversation by answering, how are you approaching 2021 differently than 2020 when it comes to growing your business? You know, it's the beginning of the new year. We're thinking about fitness for our bodies, but what about fitness for our businesses? So it's really important to get started on the right track, using those SMART goals, measure what you're doing. And so if you're joining us right now, please put your questions and your comments in the comments section. And if you're joining us later on, post your questions or comments, whether you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on LinkedIn later, on Facebook, or if you're listening to us on the podcast, you can also email us as well, and we will answer any questions you have in next week's chat.
Well, and keep in mind, there's a free downloadable. You've got the link for this. You can find it in the blog section of our website. Make sure to grab that. This one's really, really useful. It is an event sheet for planning out an event. And so we'll get into why we've picked this downloadable as the free downloadable for today a little bit later. But let's jump right into the basics of a PR plan. And Diane, I love the way you explain this. Just like we're all sort of eating a little bit better and getting into shape and, you know, trying to think about our own fitness, you also need to think about your business fitness plan, right? Your PR plan, your goals, your where you want to head. And we do quarterly objectives for all of our clients. You could do a yearly plan, you could do monthly, you could do it however it works for you, but quarterly works really well for us to look at our objectives. And just as a quick reminder, right, they should be SMART, that little acronym. They should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Realistic and relevant and time-bound. So you're really dialing it in. I want to know exactly what the goal is. I want to know how to measure it. I want to make sure it's realistic. I want to make sure that I have a time frame on it so that you can set a baseline and measure against that and see how well you're doing throughout the year.
You know, while you're doing your SMART goals, you want to keep in best practices of what's going on, especially when we're talking about that R for relevant. So we have FDA crackdowns to think about. We want to know what the latest research is, because that's going to definitely influence what you're talking about and what you're going to be able to do. COVID is going to impact these SMART goals. So as the vaccines and the inoculations, I can say that, are rolled out, you want to make sure that we figure out, you know, are we still wearing masks? What's going on When are we going to get to that point where people are things are beginning to open up again, and people are coming into dispensaries, and people are buying things at stores. So that's important. And then, there's going to be big changes coming in 2021 as far as marketing and verbiage, and who knows what else right now, right? I mean, that's the reality. There will be different segments of the industry that are going to be growing. We know that the drink segment is going to be growing at a tremendous pace, right? And we also think topicals are going to continue to grow, as well as edibles. So what does that mean? And how can you really make sure that your PR communication goals are protecting your brand and building that customer base and that loyalty?
And I think too, Diane, you look back at 2020 and you looked at so many different people who were turning to CBD as an alternative to deal with the stress of COVID, the anxiety of working from home, or the anxiety of just going to the grocery store. As inoculations continue in 2021, are we going to see those trends continue, or are people going to continue to lean on CBD to maybe help them with that day-to-day stress that they're dealing with? Or are we going to have a pullback? And that's absolutely going to impact some of these companies and how they should be shaping the way they want to look at 2021.
Absolutely. And Jordan, you have a free downloadable, right, for this podcast?
Exactly.
This one. Yeah, this one's so useful, Jordan. Quickly tell people why you picked this one to go with this episode.
Yeah, so this downloadable, it's we'll call it a watered down PR plan, but it's a pretty rock solid start to getting yourself on the road to.
This is one of our longer ones. It's 3 pages.
Yeah. So what you can do with this is, whether you are doing a specific plan for a month, a quarter, a year, or you have an event happening, you can kind of reshape this free downloadable any way that you need to, but it's going to help you organize your thoughts. It's going to help you get SMART goals in place, and it's going to help you measure against, whatever it is that you're trying to do, so that you have a clear path toward seeing if you have succeeded or not and what you're trying to do in 2021.
Absolutely. Most of all, it's going to help you move the stairs. So what does move the stairs mean? Move the stairs is our mantra. It basically means you look at whatever life is giving you, and you really, really focus in, and you don't think if only I had this, if only it was this way, but you look at what you have, and you be as creative as possible in figuring out ways that you can get an edge. So the story comes very quickly. I was a television producer at the time. I walked into a situation where a politician was going to be giving his announcement. He would have just won the election because he was an incumbent. We knew he was going to win. And when I got into the ballroom where he was going to make that announcement, and we needed to have him first, because that's the rule of TV news, is you have him first, I realized that the stairs on the podium were headed towards my competition and not towards my station. So I went up and I moved the stairs. And when you move the stairs, you give yourself, your clients, your family and friends the edge. You look at what you've got and you think, what can I do that I can really make this work for me? And I'm going to think through it as hard as possible. And that's what we do. And when you're using one of these PR plans, you will start moving the stairs, because you will start thinking through what it is.
Well, guys, I just want to show you something really quick. Recognize those folks?
Hey.
Right?
Is that our LinkedIn?
So this is on LinkedIn right now. So speaking of move the stairs,
there you go.
You can go live on LinkedIn using the StreamYard platform, but you had to like submit a request or authorization or something like that. And, for the longest time, that it wasn't a platform that we could use yet. But I'm so excited to say that we moved the stairs, we submitted the thing, we got approved, and here we are.
That's right. Exactly.
So before before we jump into the next subject, I wanted people to comment what your business objectives are for 2021. Melvin is telling me
dog you think Jordan to put outside first.
His is saying more food and more treats.
He said, this is a new guy for you, right? This is a new addition to your home.
He's the new little guy. We brought him in 2.5 weeks ago, and he's getting along just fine, as you can tell.
He's very happy. He's very happy.
He does sound happy.
Exactly.
So let's jump into this. Here's a sample objective. So when you're using this event page to plan out your strategy or your goal for 2021, I think it's going to be really helpful to walk through a sample objective, Diane. I know that Jordan's got somebody who just rang the doorbell, so he'll be back.
It's that kind of day.
We're all working from home. But let's walk through this, what a sample objective would look like.
Right. So we talked about, go ahead.
Well, say you want to grow your CBD business. You really want to make those customers loyal. You want to grow your business to a certain percentage in 2021, but you still have to make sure that you're working within FDA guidelines or lack thereof.
Absolutely. So remember, the S is for specific. So a couple questions you could ask yourself so that you could come up with making sure that the objective is specific. What percentage do you want to grow your business? I know that we have specific percentages for M&C. We have percentages when we're talking about revenue. We have percentages when we're talking about number of clients. We have percentages when we're talking about number of hours. So how does this look? What is it specifically that you want to do when you're developing that SMART objective? Do you want to be in person, or are you going to be online, or both? Or is it determined by what's going on with COVID? How many new customers do you want to have? And where do you want to distribute your products? How many new followers do you want to have? So I want you to be very, very specific about the objectives. And we usually have 3 or 4 objectives for the business, and that really helps because we can track them quarterly and see whether or not we're hitting those objectives, or if we need to do some other work to beef that up.
Well, and this is where I get really sort of wonky and excited, because I love measurement. I love setting these objectives and then measuring against them, because it's really cool to see them, moving the needle toward your objectives. But part of that, the beginning of that is set your baseline. You got to start somewhere. So if it's, a percentage of new customers, you say, all right, well, how many returning customers can I, measure right now? So do I want to increase by 25 new customers in Q1? Do I want to increase by 25% in 2021? Maybe it's a sales goal. So this is what we're talking about. You sit down and you get really, really specific, and then you make sure that you've got a baseline to measure against. Do I want to get more engagement on my social media? Maybe I want to increase social media engagement, by 20, 30% in 2021. And we do that, Jordan, using Sprout Social, which is a social media management platform. And the cool thing about that is that when we have these objectives set, you can measure very, very easily with Sprout, because it will show you month over month over month, and you can set your time frame. You can do it by quarter, you can do it by year, whatever you want. You can see the needle moving toward those goals as you work through the year.
So you have to look at too, if you're, look at your sales goals. Are they realistic? We'll just call it sales for now for this example, but, or are they attainable? Diane, not to step on your toes with the next part, but are they attainable? You have to keep in mind that as you're making these SMART goals, you can't overreach, right? You can't make it too hard. They should be challenging, but they shouldn't be out of reach for you, right? So what we like to do is, when we're planning our quarterly goals for ourselves and our clients, what we're looking at is, can we do this? And if we can do this, what baselines can we lay out so that we're measuring against that, as Sarah just pointed out? So make sure that your goals are within reach, but don't make them so easy that, you knock them out. You don't give yourself a little bit of a challenge.
I always like to look at what we did the year before, set something that's a little bit higher than that, but then set a reach goal so that you're really stretching. So you're figuring out, because I do think that I've learned through the years that if you put something in the back of your head and you start thinking about it and you start working towards it, it is amazing what you're able to do. So I like the attainable part. I think that's great. And yes, you have to be realistic, and that's the R in SMART. 2021 right now isn't so different from 2020, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be very different, at least we hope, by the summer, right? So as people are inoculated and things start to open up, how is that going to impact your business? Did you go completely online? Are you still looking at a hybrid model? Will you be able to hire people back? And it's not just going to be COVID, but there are going to be a lot of other headlines that are going to come up. And as all of you know, 2020 was a perfect example. We don't necessarily know what those headlines are going to be. So is your plan flexible enough that you can realistically hit whatever that growth factor is that you're looking for? And I think that given, the economy is always one of those things that we wait and see. I was just listening to CNBC this morning, and they're kind of all over the place on what's going to happen. There's a lot of people who are extremely optimistic about this year, but they're optimistic after we get to that COVID vaccination level where we can feel comfortable again. So when does that happen, seeing as we haven't hit the inoculations that we thought we were going to hit in December? So I think it's important that you're always flexible. That's why we go back and we look again every quarter to see where we are, because it is okay to change your objectives based on what's going on from a realistic standpoint.
And that's part of the last element of SMART, which is T for time-bound or timely. So, for instance, we were working through a full year PR plan with a client the other day. The client said, man, we just cannot commit to a standard full year PR plan because COVID is just really affecting that business and how many people they can have in and what they can do and what they can offer for that business. So that's a case where we said, you know what, let's set goals for Q1. And let's get this 3 months that work really, really well. They're tight, they're specific, they're realistic, they're all of these things. And then we will revisit for Q2 once it becomes more clear what COVID is going to do as we get into the early spring and early summer.
And I like the fact that we have a plan, but we're very flexible as to whether or not that plan is going to be realistic, depending on what happens. And so we have a path forward that will keep spurring us. In a perfect world, this is what would happen and this is how it would work. But here's our real world and what's going to happen. But to go back and say, I am going to check this once every 3 months. I am going to measure monthly, but then really look hard at the 3-month measurements and see what's going on. And if I need to change those objectives, I think that's a lot of reasons why people don't do goals and objectives, is they think they're tied to them. The reality is it sets you on a path. It doesn't mean that you have to stay there, because that's not the way life works. And that's why you go back at least once a quarter to review it and make sure that you're being smart as to how you're measuring, but you can still see that you're making progress. I had this wonderful situation when I worked at National Stroke Association, where I worked with these stroke survivors who in a second lost their ability to speak, their ability to read. And these are people who are our age. And in a second, it was gone. And in one of them, an older man, he rebuilt antique planes, and he actually had a hangar in his backyard, and he had just purchased the parts to a full plane, and the parts were all over the hangar. And when he came back from the stroke, he couldn't even walk by the hangar without being in tears, because his brain wasn't working well enough that he could put anything together. And they started doing remedial education with him. But the most important thing they did was they had a plan where they could show him his progress. So on those days when he was so frustrated, when he didn't feel like doing it anymore because he just didn't feel like he was making any progress, he could go back and look and see the progress that he had made. That was such a huge learning for me in business, because I think that's really, really important, because when you go back and you're measuring and you're looking at what you did, you'll be amazed at all that you've gotten done. And it really keeps you motivated.
Well, it's sort of like, tracking your weight loss, right? We're talking
Mhm.
about
Yep.
fitness, or your time on the treadmill.
Mhm.
Right.
Am I able to go further, longer, faster,
Exactly.
a month in than I was when I started on January 8th, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jordan, I love this example that you have of how we took over client social media during the COVID shutdown. Talk about something that no one ever saw coming.
Yeah, no kidding. So this was an instance last year where one of our clients was impacted during that initial round of COVID shutdowns, and they wanted a way to continue to outreach to people, to continue that social media community that they had worked so hard to build, but didn't have a way to do so with their business being closed. So through working with us and through working on a new plan, we were ready to address that. So when the time came that they had to close their doors, they were still able to outreach to not only their customers, but also the people who worked with them as well, so that everyone was on the same page that, hey, we're all in this together. And I think that's a really great example of how that you can take a specific objective like social media and pivot it on a dime if you need to. You're not tied to it. I think that was, and they executed, and we executed for them in a really great way in that collaboration, that they were able to build their customer loyalty, and they were able to grow the relationships that they had with people who worked with them and worked for them. I thought it was awesome.
One of the great fallbacks is if you're passionate about your industry, there's always things that you can teach about your industry. So if you already have loyal customers, they're also passionate. They're also very interested. And so that's always a fallback for you, is that if you can't talk about what's going on specifically at your place of business, you can teach about your industry, about the topic, talk about what the new information is that's coming out. There's a lot of things that you can do, and you can do a lot of video, you can do a lot of interactive surveys, those types of things, so that you keep that loyal customer base and you're consistently messaging them, as we've talked about so many times. That's so important. So I want to know, what do you guys think? Tell us about the smart breakdown that you're thinking about dialing into your brand protection objectives for 2021. And if you need help, you just give us a call. Let us know. We'll be able to help you out with that. So let's look ahead to next week for a moment. And what we're going to talk about, we're going to continue our CBD Fitness Program and move toward the weightlifting portion of your health and wellness brand protection communication program.
We're very literal about this.
So we want to know how healthy you think your program is. So send us your comments and your questions so that we can help you really build that, so that you're having the impact and the results that you're looking for.
And to put a bow on our conversation, we want you to get really creative with the tactics that you use to help accomplish your objectives. Now, in a fitness sense, think of this as when you walk into the gym, you see the treadmill, you see the kettlebells, the dumbbells. This is the items that you're going to use to help you accomplish your goals. And we want to make sure that you have that crystal clear as you're looking ahead to 2021, so that you can have success in 2021.
And the first thing to start out with, right, Diane, is education. And we do this when we're prepping these Move the Stairs conversations. But I think it's really important, because you've got a great point about using some research to talk about CBD when it comes to education.
One of the very easy ways to figure out what people are talking about is if you put the term CBD into Google, there's the people also ask box that pops up. And right now, the number one thing they're asking is CBD safe. It's interesting, though, because when we were doing this even 6 months ago, the first question was, does CBD get me high? So I think that indicates that people are not only looking for information, we know that this is searched quite a bit, but we also know that the message is getting out about the difference between CBD and THC. It's not done yet by any means. You want to continue to move that message and continue to reiterate that message. But the fact is that the public is looking to learn about CBD. And so I really think that there's a lot for public to learn, but this is where you can really help. As we talked about, education is a great place to go, no matter what's going on. People are always looking for education. And when you're thinking about the buckets, that's one of the buckets that you can have, so that, at least once a week, you're doing some type of education.
Well, and you sent that article around the office this morning, the virtual office,
Right.
that talked about that the CBD industry is in like an early stage run up of 5 to 10 years.
Right.
5 to 10 years, we need to be educating our customers, educating consumers in general, educating based on changes in the industry. So just because we all feel like, oh, I know that, I got that, and we're so far beyond that, folks, consumers aren't. Like, they're still Googling, is it legal?
Right.
Is it safe? Is it healthy? What is it? Is it different from marijuana? I mean, there's just really 101 level questions. And that's why we love to go into Google and just run some searches and look at what people are asking, look at Google Trends. Keep an eye on that so you can answer those questions as people are asking the biggest search engine in the entire world. It's a treasure trove.
Right. Relevance is so important, right, Jordan?
Yeah, absolutely. And, social media is going to be probably your best engine to deliver that to your consumers, because if you already have a social media page with, hundreds or thousands of followers, it's going to be a great spot for you to use that and leverage your knowledge to pass that along to your consumers. And I think, how would you do that? You could use a weekly video. Our theme this month is fitness, right? So maybe come up with a monthly theme, and you're doing a weekly video, just like we do at MNC with the Move the Stairs, and put that out on your social media channels. What about a podcast? We easily turn this into a podcast. So you're not creating a ton of extra work for yourself, but you're recycling the content that you already have out there for a target audience, and then targeting yet another audience and adding value to it, which is also great. You could interview your scientists. Your chief medical officer is going to be that go-to person who knows CBD from start to finish. And they can be that figure that can say, this is what CBD does. This is how we use it. These are the studies that we have used to show one result or another, leading us to believe one thing or another. So use these as opportunities to educate your consumers. But Diane, I think being transparent about this on social media is really important too. And that's where people have gotten in trouble with the FDA and the FTC.
Right. You have to be very, very careful that you are not making any medical claims, and that no one who's commenting on your social media is making medical claims. Hide those comments, because you don't want to raise the ire of the FDA at this point, or the FTC for that matter. And we will know soon enough what the rules and regulations are. But for right now, we know that we just need to hold on a little bit longer and talk about what we do know. And that's really important.
So let us know in the comments, has this helped you at all? Is this going to lead to your brand protection strategy? Are you looking forward to 2021? Because we talked about a lot today, and it's hard to believe that our time is almost up, because remember, we started recapping exactly what a PR plan. This is your fitness template. This is the roadmap to your success in 2021. We talked about some sample objectives. This is where you're looking at how you're going to exercise your brand so that you're set up for fitness success in 2021. And then we just wrapped up several different tactics you can take. Think about your dumbbells, your kettlebells, your weightlifting machines at the gym that you can use in support of your objectives, so that by the time we get to December 31st, 2021, it's a long ways away, and hopefully we're in a whole lot better shape by then, but you can look back at your goals from 2020 and say, wow, we really took some leaps and bounds this year.
Absolutely. I want to see you flex that brand protection PR muscle, and let's see how it goes. So thanks so much for joining us for this week's Move the Stairs episode. You know, we're here to help you protect your brand and build your business with strategic public relations, insider media relations, and crisis communications.
And just let us know if we can help you. Drop us a line, send us an email, contact us on the website. Let us know how we can help, and we're happy to see what we can do. Thanks for joining us. Join us all again next week.